Imagine that. I'm back again. Well, I took a little nap, so I'm feeling very, very video creative right now at the moment with some things to say. Having things on my mind, I like to go share that with you all. Well, I want to talk about the political left, the concept of liberty versus constitutional governance. Now, what is the stated or collective purpose of the political left? That most people would agree whether they are supportive of the left or against the left. And even those who are against the left will act like what the positive or what is the popular conception of the left is. They think it's a bad thing. But anyway, let me state what it is. The stated and collective purpose of the political left is to win the minds and hearts of the people, get ourselves elected to govern. Now, govern in what capacity? Like political parties? We're talking about working within the two-party system. We're talking about, what are we talking about? Independence? No party affiliation, but to get ourselves in whatever capacity elected to govern. And when we govern to improve people's lives. I think that pretty much that will be the purpose of the left. That's kind of well known to most people, whether they agree with it or not. I would say that mainly, it is to depending on how you view capitalism. We're just going to say predatory capitalism to try to do away with predatory capitalism. Some of them want to go and abolish capitalism altogether. Some of them thinks that it would take. Where I come from, I think a mixed economy is what I'm for, essentially. And some people on the hard left will argue that I'm not a socialist. Some thoughtful conservatives would say I am not a socialist and say I'm just a mere social democrat. But I'm one of those that would say that socialism and social democracy is one of the same. But regardless of whether you are a tepid liberal or you are a socialist or a social democrat or you're an actual Marxist Leninist, which I am not, um, and when I say Marxist Leninist, that's the blanket term for communism as most people understand it. Um, the purpose is to try to do what you can to create an environment for people where they can have their lives improved. And the big thing, central theme, is to tackle income inequality. At least in theory, that is what it is. Like for example, I'm going to go with the collective, where everybody sort of are going to be more or less in agreement, no matter what faction of the left you belong to. Income equality, jobs, like labor law reforms. So the unions can make a comeback. Right now, we are 6.2% of the private sector belonging to a labor or trade union. Maybe 10% when you combine public sector employees to the mix. But the unions are almost non-existent in the United States. And as the unions have declined in the last 40 some years, it really started to went into rapid decline under Reagan, but it was having problems by the 1970s. But the point is that it went into decline, serious decline, hyper decline during the 80s, and it's even declining right now as we speak. As the union's membership declined, the middle class kind of plummeted down. It's a race toward the bottom, and unions would do a whole lot to repair that. And some people think that unions are a dirty word, and it is not. I would say that making jobs available for people. Now we have. legislation that's been enacted in 19, I mean, that was voted to be enacted in 1976, called the Humphrey Hawkins Act, the full employment act, basically. And that piece of legislation has not actually been enforced. You need to enforce it. What would it do? It will create infrastructure projects. It would basically guarantee every man and woman a job in this country. If you can't find a job in the private sector, the government will find you a public sector unionized job for you where you can get a living wage. We needed that. That's if that one piece of legislation, other than universal health care, would do so much to help the American people. And I think it is the job of the left to make sure that the Humphrey Hawkins Act of 1976 become an enforced law to make sure everybody has a job. Healthcare. You hear me talk about healthcare all the time. Almost every video, I'm talking about universal healthcare. And I confess, it's one of my most important issues when it comes to economics. Um, we need at the very minimum, we need a Medicare for all system, roughly like they have in Canada or down in Australia or in France or Sweden. With it was called single payer, which means basically a Medicare for all national health insurance system. Um, at a minimum, that's what we should have. But I ultimately would favor real socialized medicine because Medicare for all is supported by socialists in the United States, but it is not a socialist reform. It's not socialism. Yeah, the government controls the insurance system. There's no private insurance system, or there's very little private insurance in the system, but it's not socialism. Socialism is what they have in Great Britain in terms of healthcare, the National Health Service. And it was so damn popular all these years that no conservative government dared to take it apart when they got it back in power. Not even Margaret Thatcher. And to further prove that the National Health Service is a blessing to the people of Great Britain. Britain's Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, thanked the National Health Service for his speedy physical recovery when he got COVID-19. He praised the National Health Service. And you heard me make this analogy before. How sad is it that Boris Johnson in Great Britain is to the left of Nancy Pelosi and is to the left of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer on the question of health care? I mean, these Democrats can't even support the modest Medicare for all, let alone something as bold and as successful as the National Health Service in Great Britain. But that's what we need here, and it's pretty much the left in the United States. Elsewhere, even conservatives are fine with universal health care. The first universal health care nation in the world was in Germany under Chancellor Otto von Bismarck in 1881, and he certainly was no radical socialist Marxist type. He was a conservative. And the first welfare state in the world was in Germany in the 1880s, set up by the conservative Bismarck government. Christian democracy. But anyway, let me go on. You got jobs, you got healthcare, you got retirement, strengthening Social Security. I would like to go back to the days where full Social Security benefits started at 62, and now it's at freaking 67. I am personally going to get my Social Security when I'm 62 years old. Well, I'm going to start filing for Social Security. So I got roughly 10 years before I retire. And we must see to it that Social Security is preserved and that Medicare, as we know it, gets expanded over the entire population. That is the income inequality of what it means to be on the left. And I am being very long-winded, and let me just get on what I have to say. Another facet to the left is social equality. That means racial equality. That means religious equality. That means gender equality. That means equality on the basis of age. It means equality on the basis of whether you're disabled or not. And this part, for some reason, is controversial, but it's slightly less controversial than it used to be. So I guess progress is being made, and that would include sexual orientation. Ecology. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We have climate change, and you can tie this in with infrastructure, green jobs, a Green New Deal, tied into the Humphrey Act that I was talking to you about earlier. And of course, a true leftist looks at these neocon wars in that the United States is engaged in, being conducted by the military-industrial complex and the surveillance states that we have as a result on these wars that are just going on, that it's pretty much a nonpartisan issue. War fucking sucks. Let's get the hell out of Afghanistan. Let's get the hell out of Iraq. Let's get the hell out of all these bases around the world, and let's tend to our own business. And that's basically what it means to be on the left, addressing income equality, working towards social equality, working toward a clean environment, and to be non-interventionists. But we have a public relations disaster, and the perception of the left by most people is that the left are either full of communists and socialists. Now, I have stated this before. There's a difference between being a socialist and a communist. But there's a lot of people who do not take basic political science or don't listen to what their professor told them in basic political science about the proper differences between socialism and communism. And so, they think that every Democrat is some kind of a communist or a socialist, or socialism is basically boiled down to, ew, everything I hate is socialism by the political right. Or they refer to what is called liberal weakness. And I even acknowledge that. It gets on my nerves seeing liberals walking around, being afraid to take their own side in an argument. And so they either look like they're Stalinists, which they're not. And unfortunately, when they don't look at them as Stalinists, authoritarian thugs, they look at the left as spineless little liberal Nellies, too afraid to take their own side of the argument. I've heard the term bleeding hearts, weeping Nellies, all this sort of thing. Some of the Archie Bunker phraseology of the left, which is funny because the left was in much better shape in the 70s than it is today. Well, so you got the liberals. They almost take a pride in showing how weak and humble they are. Or you got some, they're contrarian and they're going to live up to the stereotypes just to own the right. And both strategies have failed. Well, the right accuses the left of being politically correct and social justice warrior and desiring for their own safe spaces. Well, the right demand their own safe space too. I mean, Fox News was considered too moderate for these people, so you end up with One American Network and Newsmax, for example. Parler, for example, they get mad at lefties, liberals for Silicon Valley liberals banning them on Facebook and Twitter. So they go form Parler, and then they ban people they don't like off of Parler, and Parler actually got pulled down. And I'm opposed to Parler being pulled down on principle, but the thing is that the right sections of the right, just like the left, practice in censorship, and don't let anybody convince you otherwise. And now, when it comes to free expression, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Yeah, flag burning is offensive to me. I'm not the most patriotic person in the world, obviously, but yeah, when I see somebody burning the flag, that's I kind of frown on it myself. But I don't think it ought to be banned. Some little purple hair kid trying to be shocking and burning the flag, as long as that purple hair kid doesn't have to be a purple hair kid. I'm just giving you an example of what people would conceptualize as somebody burning the flag. But some purple hair kid burning the flag, as long as that kid is not violating any fire codes, and as long as that kid bought it with his or her own money, and they have a right to do what they want to with their own property. And aren't you some of you people on the right always lecturing the liberal left about property rights? Well, if you own a flag and you want to desecrate it, even though I would never support people doing that, it is their right to do so. Um, Now, as far as the constitutional governance, I think that the Constitution has been, generally speaking, a very positive document, and it has done a lot of good when once it's used correctly. And it's been very good. Is a great document, but it can always be made better. Now, neither the left nor the right will get everything they want 100% because of the U.S. Constitution. It's imperfect enough that's not going to satisfy one side or the other fully, and that is perhaps a good thing too, because you know democracies are imperfect institutions of government. Uh, Whether you want to regard the United States as a democracy or republic, I say that the United States is a constitutional republic, but is also a representative. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. Well, let me just say, we are both a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. And it's a good thing that we are both. I actually wouldn't have it any other way. Um, any good that's not in par with constitutional rights or liberties should be made constitutional, or if it's hazy on certain issues, one way or the other, I will argue that it should be made constitutional. For example, I do believe that the death penalty is unconstitutional. As you read the Eighth Amendment about cruel and unusual punishment, you will understand why I think that the death penalty is unconstitutional. But I would like to fervently enshrine it in the U.S. Constitution, language wise, for example, that the death penalty it will not be put into practice, or that health care will be a guaranteed right. Yeah, there's nothing in the Constitution that forbids universal health care or bless it. And I agree there's nothing in there. So because it doesn't prohibit it, I think it's okay to have it. But I also think that there should be a situation where it could be provided and enshrined in our U.S. Constitution. And if it can ever be done, do it. So we can join the family of nations around the world that guarantees medical access for free to the American population. Now, the thing about our court systems in the country, it has been highly politicized by both sides. Now, when conservatives talk about liberal judicial activism, well, I mean, there may be some truth to that, but you know what? Reagan, George W. Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump all have politicized the courts too. They want their own version of judicial activism. And same with the left. Well, when Bill Clinton came in and Barack Obama came in, they wanted their liberal judges. And unfortunately, the Republican presidents have done not better in terms of I approve of the ideology of the justices, but they tune out judges more to their liking than Democratic presidents would for their base. But I think that maybe the solution to this, and I used to be in favor of saying, well, just expand the courts with the next Democratic president, but that's kind of dangerous. I think a better way to deal with this is to have maybe a 10-year term limit for all federal judges. You get appointed by this president or that president in the Supreme Court. Once you're sworn in, you are there for 10 years. And after 10 years, your ass is gone. You can go on your public speaking circuit. You can enjoy retirement, do whatever you want, but you're only supposed to be there for 10 years. I think that is the way to go. And I would disagree with some on the left saying, let's abolish the courts altogether. No, that's not the answer. And expanding the courts might not be the answer either. I say the term limits for court judges would be the way to go about it. But as I said, the Constitution is it has been a good document, and we need to abide by constitutional governance in our public relations battle, because I do believe we will win these battles when doing so. Um, and do not, this is to the left, do not let stupid gun girl with her stupid liberty hangout, Caitlin Bennett, hijack the term liberty. Do not let neocon asshole on Fox, Mark Levin, with his stupid show, Life, Liberty, Levin. Don't let him hijack the term liberty. Those motherfuckers do not know a damn thing about liberty. And as I said, we need to win the hearts and souls of people, and we need to be consistent when doing so. So I abide by the U.S. Constitution as fully as I can, but I don't restrict myself just to the U.S. Constitution. I also would say the same about the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a pretty damn good document too. And considering that the ideology that I uphold, democratic socialism or social democracy, this is not necessarily in any government, but more along the lines of partisan politics in each respective country around the world. And I see myself in the global sense an international centrist, in the sense that I am a democratic socialist or a social democrat in the tradition of pretty much political parties affiliated with the Socialist International, the Worldwide Federation of Democratic Socialist, Social Democratic, and Labor parties. And the fact that we do not have a viable Labor Party in this country makes me indeed very sad. In fact, I think it's a crime that we don't have one. And I would like to see the Democratic Party be supplanted in the United States in the same way that the Liberal Party in Great Britain was supplanted in 1945. And what I mean by that, in 1945, the Liberal Party was the party of the center left, and they were replaced with the British Labour Party, which is still the party of the center left to today. And when I say left, that's pretty much what I mean by my socialism and my social democracy is center left in concept. Because I mean, if I lived in Canada, I'd be with the New Democratic Party. If I lived in Great Britain, I'd be with the British Labour Party. If I lived in France, I would be with the French Socialist Party. If I lived in Sweden, the Social Democrats. You get the idea. But as I said, while I am a socialist, I also believe we should do everything within the guidelines of our U.S. System of checks and balances, constitutional rights, and so forth. Because to do so, we will ultimately be on the winning side. That's the way I see it. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but that's the way I view it. Anyway, if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you were absolutely just like, what the hell is all this about? Comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. I got a lot of videos, as you can tell. Let's see what else I'm going to say. As a First Amendment absolutist, I encourage each and every one of you to develop a platform, especially if you're passionate about something, because we are the muckrakers of our time. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button and help make this channel grow. I have big plans for this channel. And until next time, I am American Social Democracy. Peace, and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024.